let's do a kind of economics conversation.
Mm-hmm.
How has the industry changed since from when you entered the space? Was there a way to make a viable living when you entered the space, or would you always be just renting an apartment, let's say, near the coast? And now, of course, we can't afford to rent an apartment at the coast anymore, but was there a viable way to make a living?
I think that's an interesting discussion because I did take a break from it for a considerable amount of time. Like kind of when I left was probably right after in the same time period of like Clark Foam closing down and, you know, the apocalypse of surfboards. And, you know, I remember all that and being around then. And then I left and Diamond was still going. PSG at that point had closed down technically, but had been rebought. But unfortunately, those guys are just in over their heads, so it didn't work out. And I mean, that factory was massive. I don't know if you ever been in there, but
no, I haven't.
It was insane. But that infrastructure, that lifestyle, those guys were all still around, you know, at that time period. And then I took a break and came back, and then it was absolute culture shock for me, where I'm just like, this is a completely different landscape now in terms of the surfboard industry. I think back then it was viable because all these guys had mortgages, all these guys had kids, they all own houses, they bought property, like, so yeah, it was viable back then. And I think a big part of that was these guys worked hard, busted their ass, and did 100, 120 a week, and it was a lot cheaper to live here then.
Right.
You know, now I think there's more of this trend, at least from my perspective of the surfboard factories that I see around now, where the top ones are maxing out at 20 to 25 a week. So it's just completely different. And, you know, like I said earlier, like, it doesn't matter how much any of us are making per board. If there isn't boards there, we don't make money.
Right.
You know, and there's no safety net. There's no anything, you know, where I think back in the day, because the numbers were so much bigger on a weekly basis for a factory, you didn't run into these issues that you run into now, where these factories are only doing 20 or 25 a week. You know, like, you could run through the pile pretty quick if there's not stuff coming in.
Yeah. Would you have gotten back into the business if you would have been able to have a crystal ball and seen the economics of it now?
I think from the economic standpoint, I probably would have stayed away from it, but ultimately I don't do it for those reasons, you know?
Well, I'm glad that you answered it that way, though, because part of what I want to point out is if investments aren't made now, 5 years from now, 10 years from now, there's a very legitimate possibility that these things go away. Like, these artisan craftsmen that we have access to now won't be here in the future, and that it's either a $5,000 surfboard from the 3 or 4 people who remain, or the $1,000 surfboard that got shipped over from overseas. And so I think it's important for you to acknowledge that and say it publicly so people understand, like, hey, bumping the price up to $2,000 means we have a cottage industry that can be viable locally, and we can get boards from shapers who can tailor it to our specificity with artisan craftsmanship, you know. And
I think there's more of an emphasis now on the kind of work that we're doing.
There is
the higher end, more artisan stuff like you're talking about. But I think, number one, yes, those boards should be more expensive because, you know, at a certain point, I mean, you know, there's people that are mega successful in the industry, shapers, whatever, you know, and like really famous, and, you know, and they've got like a pot to fucking piss in, man, you know?
Yeah.
You know what I'm talking about.
Totally.
And I think it's kind of, it's kind of messed up that there's these people in the surf industry have been mega successful and have made millions and millions and millions and millions of dollars off surfing and this and sponsorship deals and this and that. And those guys haven't sunk a dollar back into the actual industry that has kind of provided, them that success to a certain extent, and, respect to Joel Tudor for at least being one of those people who does realize that and step up. Because if somebody doesn't and more people don't, guys like me, at a certain point, we're not going to be able to do it anymore.
I mean, a lot of it already has gone away.
Absolutely.
So back up and explain that. What is LSD and how did LSD come to be? And why? Why did it come to be?
So I've been there probably a little more than a year and a half. I think the factory's opened about 2 years now. I kind of knew about it before they opened, or I knew that there was a project going, and I knew that like Alex was involved and Joel was involved. And so I kind of, even before it opened, I kind of had a feeling like probably going to end up working over there. It seemed like would probably be a really good fit, I think, that Joel with his distributor, the two that opened the factory up, I think it was a long road for them to get everything dialed. I mean, if you go into the factory, it's not a huge factory, but it's, in my opinion, probably one of the most well-built factories I've, had the opportunity to work in. Definitely. It's dialed.
A lot of other factories were built kind of like you explained yours in Ventura, where maybe it started small and then they got another space adjacent. So they built into that.
Exactly.
But not a lot of them have been built to spec.
Yeah. This like place, it's dialed.
Yeah.
Man. It's freaking dialed, and it's really small. It's only, 4 full-time employees. That's it.
Okay.
And honestly, like, it's the best work I've ever seen out of any factory in my entire life. I'm not the only person that says that, but the quality of the boards that come out of the place is like next level. It's insane.
Who are the 4 employees and whose boards are being built there?
So the laminator is Alex Villalobos, which we've discussed. The hot coater, fin guy, just all around, board builder, great board builder is Justin Pettix. He's from OB. I'm the sander, and then I do resin pin lines along with Larry Crow. Who, if you don't know who that is, look it up. And then Tommy Kroll, spacing on his last name, is the guy after me. So he does all the glossing, polishing, wet sand, stuff like that. And then, I do all the sanding. And then sometimes if we have enough work, we're afforded the pleasure of Wade's company to be in there and sand some, which anytime we can have Wade there, we want Wade there. Definitely.
Wade Larent.
Yeah, the man himself.
And there's a couple of shaping bays.
There's 2 shaping bays there. The boards that we've been doing, we do all of Jeff McCullum's boards, which he's the man. He's an awesome guy, great to work with. Just has different ideas, but everything he does is just really, really cool, and he's a cool person, good shaper. Derek Disney, we do his boards. Pavel's when he's around, which you know how that is. But yeah, Pavel's, we do the Hermosa boards, which is a little surf shop in Bird Rock, which is rad. If you're down there, go check it out.
I've been into that shop, and those boards look amazing.
The aesthetic of the whole place, like
totally.
Yeah. It's owned by 2 brothers, and they know what they're doing. They're really good guys. So we do their boards, some Alex Lopez's from time to time, and then all the Ryan Birch stuff. Yeah, which is insane.
Yeah. You said earlier when we were talking about imported boards, manufactured overseas, those boards probably work well.
I mean, I've ridden a pop out over the years, and I've been like, whoa, this thing's, I mean, you know, I'm not going to say like, oh, this is shit, because who knows, it might work halfway decent.
People use the word quality, and
Yeah,
so, I mean, obviously there's design quality, you know, of boards that work well.
absolutely.
But then quality also in terms of durability and like how long a surfboard will last. Would you make an argument against those overseas manufactured boards in terms of the durability?
I mean, obviously I'm going to make an argument against it because it affects my paycheck.
Yeah. Well, obviously, yeah, you have skin in the game, but
Yeah.
realistically, is a board manufactured, let's say, or more broader, a board that's a factory that's manufacturing a lot of surfboards, can they maintain the level of quality of what you guys are putting out, do you think?
No.
Okay.
No.
So there's
even just based off they don't have us.
your guys' skill sets,
Yeah.
of course, but is there a way to scale up? Or is there an inverse relationship between number of boards put out versus quality?
I don't think necessarily that the two correlate. I think, you know, you can get burned out, but if you have good people in there who are professionals, I mean, I'm capable of doing some numbers for sure. And so I've, you know, seen other people who are really good, and like, you know, you can be really good, but if you're slow, you're not making money. So you got to, you know, that's part of being a professional, is being able to do it in a timely fashion. You know, like, I'm going to go in there and sand that glass on keel fin with a loop in an hour, and it's going to be fucking perfect, you know, and I've got my routine down, and every single board is done exactly the same. There's no guesswork involved, you know, and with sanding, like, you know, the machine doesn't lie. Like, it's all right there in front of you, and the machine's going to draw it for you.
Yeah.
If, you know, and you just keep doing the same thing, boom, 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 you know.